joined now by Joe Bauman. He's back with us from the Birmingham Bloomfield Chamber of Commerce, on with us on the Oakland County Megacast. Okay, looks like he is not on the phone. Let's see if we have him on Zoom. Joe, do we have you with us?
You do.
Wonderful. Good. Okay, so it worked out with Zoom and put you up.
Sorry about that.
No, it's okay. It's good. It's good to see you. It's good to have you with us. We always love being able to see our guests. You can't see us, but you always see us on the replays on civiccentertv.com. So, right to it. How are you? How's your team at the Birmingham Bloomfield Chamber been doing?
We're plugging along day at a time. Thank you so much for having me on again to talk about what's happening in our communities. Stores are reopening and restaurants are reopening, and they're starting to feel a little bit of a return to normal, but we still have, significant challenges facing our small businesses.
And with all these reopenings that have been happening, we've seen restaurants reopen a couple weeks recently. Before that, it was retail, personal services last week, and now tomorrow, local gyms are going to be able to reopen despite the governor's appeal of that ruling by a federal judge. How has the chamber been helping them prepare to open and have been helping them after they are open, for best safety practices, but also for best business practices as well?
Sure. So one of the things we did is we partnered with Oakland County in distributing PPE kits that the county made available. I think they had 10,000 that were distributed in all of the communities in Oakland County for small businesses. Everything they needed to kind of prepare to get back to business: touchless thermometers, masks, gloves, gowns, even X's to put on your floor for encouraging social distancing. The other thing that we did is really shared a lot of best practices with them from the World Health Organization and the CDC. And now that we are getting reopened, we're working with them on, the problem is that our businesses are facing several obstacles. Number one, there's still a segment of the population that's not comfortable coming into an enclosed space. And so we're encouraging our retailers and our restaurants to continue their curbside pickup programs and their online shopping programs to make sure to continue to get that segment of the business. Another challenge we see emerging is, regrettably, over the use of face masks. Many people, the majority of people, are still using masks when they're in an enclosed space, but some aren't, and it's causing conflict among the customers and with the shopkeepers and the restaurants. So what we're telling our restaurants is, if you have a policy that you require people wear masks, you just politely inform your customers as they're coming in if they're not wearing them, but you never want the situation to escalate. The other challenge is, they're trying to make up for a lot of lost revenue, so it's very difficult for a retailer or a restaurant to turn away business because someone's not wearing a mask. On the other hand, you have people who will go into a store or they'll go into a restaurant, they'll be wearing a mask, they'll see people who aren't wearing a mask, and that makes them uncomfortable. Well, instead of getting into an argument over the wearing of masks, which can quickly escalate, what we encourage our customers to do, and the consumers and the public, is if you go into one of your favorite stores or restaurants, and if they have a posted policy that face coverings must be worn, and if there are people in there that aren't, we suggest that you just kindly ask to see the manager, and you explain to the manager that because some of the other customers are not following the guidelines, you're not comfortable being in their place of business, and you're not going to return until they can guarantee that they're enforcing their own policy. So it's hard to believe that, wearing masks has become a political issue as well as a health issue, but unfortunately that's where we're at. So we just ask everyone to be patient, be kind, and be understanding.
And I think that's the least that that these businesses can do for that these patrons can do for these businesses, and the least that the businesses can ask for them, because you do have to have that balance where you are balancing, I have to get back in the business and I have to hopefully be able to kickstart economically and financially what we're bringing back in, but also have to keep everybody safe, including my staff, including my team, including the facilities, and that's going to require enforcing that people are coming into our facilities, coming into our shops, in our restaurants, whatever it may be, and following those regulations, because it is what's keeping people safe. And consequently, there's another choice that businesses are making as well as they prepare for that and for other scenarios, which is we're able to open today. But do we open today or do we wait a few days? Do we wait a week? Do we wait 2 weeks and get everything perfected? In Birmingham and Bloomfield, within your Chamber of Commerce, are you seeing one way being happening more than another, immediate versus waiting to reopen? And what are some of the reasons behind businesses doing one versus the other?
I would say that the majority of businesses have reopened in some form or fashion. But we do have restaurants, for instance, that have not opened yet. And what we're hearing, there's one of two reasons. Either they don't have sufficient staff to reopen, they're still trying to hire their people back, or they don't feel that they've got necessary and adequate safety precautions in place to allow people back into their places of business. You know, small business owners, they bear a huge responsibility. They have to take care of their employees, and they have to, they're charged with making sure that they protect the safety and health of their employees. And again, if you have people coming into your store and they're not following your requirements of wearing face coverings, then that's going to make the employees very uncomfortable. And maybe the employers are going to say, I'm not comfortable, so I'm not coming back to work. So it's not about protecting yourself. That's the thing. You don't wear a face covering mostly to protect yourself. You're doing it to be kind and courteous and considerate of others around you. And I think that message is starting to get lost a little bit.
It definitely is. And hopefully as time goes on and people realize just how much of an impact these safety measures have, that they'll be a little bit more compliant. And we heard it earlier. We heard it in previous episodes of the show that it's not just the guidelines that were put in place by the governor, by the county, by these local municipalities that made Michigan one of those 3 states that was on track as of the last press conference with the governor to contain the virus. It was the compliance of the people to those regulations, to those often harsh and sometimes very stringent regulations that people didn't agree with. Their compliance amongst the population is what let that go on. And so encouraging that is the best thing that we can do. But until that happens, you got to maintain the social distance. You got to encourage that within your businesses. And a lot of these municipalities in Oakland County are doing their part as well to lift restrictions and to put new regulations in place, temporary or permanent, to help businesses expand. And a lot of times it's outdoors, on the sidewalks, even in some streets and parking areas, in order to allow greater space so more people can shop at a store at one time instead of only limiting them to 50% capacity. In the communities within your chamber that are doing that, are you seeing a boom in business? Is that helping these local businesses come back strong?
Absolutely. I think whether it's real or even if it's just psychological, I think people feel more comfortable when they're outdoors, when they're not in a confined space. So whatever, our local municipalities can do to encourage more use of outdoor space for both retail and restaurants especially, that's what we're encouraging them to do. And we're seeing that happening in all of our communities. So, if you walk down some of the streets in downtown Birmingham, you're going to see a whole bunch of new outdoor dining platforms. There's even talk about turning Shane Park into a kind of a super cafe where individual restaurants could have a portion of the park for outdoor seating. This is a really serious issue that needs bold steps and bold solutions. This is not the time to, study an issue for 6 months to determine whether you can relax this standard or relax this ordinance. In order for our small businesses, our restaurants to survive, we need some bold leadership, and fortunately we're seeing it. Starting with Oakland County, I think they've done an amazing job with the money they're making available to small businesses in the form of grants, the PPE kits, the fact that now if you're an Oakland County resident, you can get tested for COVID for free. You don't have to have a prescription. You don't have to, have any symptoms. You can just go and get tested. So it's very gratifying to see that our leaders are really leading.
Joe Bauman with us on the Oakland County MegaCast. He is the president of the Birmingham Bloomfield Chamber of Commerce. And it just so happens I want to give a big thank you to you, Joe, and to Kelly and your entire team for joining us today as our Facebook partner. We are live on the Facebook page of the Birmingham Bloomfield Chamber of Commerce on today's program, in addition to all of our other community television and radio stations. So, Joe, these companies, these businesses locally have had to pivot. They've had to make changes. They've had to put new regulations in place for safety reasons or even just for efficiency reasons, given those safety precautions. Do you see some of those changes sticking after this is all done, being permanent? How do you believe that the changes that they've had to make now and those innovations that they have made in the process of making those changes will stick and will impact these businesses going forward when we're out of this pandemic?
Well, I think for retailers, the biggest thing is it forced everyone to become an online retailer, right? The only way you could conduct any kind of sales was over the internet. It's no secret that our bricks and mortar retailers have been hurt badly by internet commerce from, mega companies. And so what this has done, it's given them an opportunity to set up their own little internet stores and their own online presence. And I think that will continue to help them going forward because, there are a segment of the population that they just prefer the convenience of ordering something online and having it shipped to them. Well, the best way to combat, somebody who's not from the community and not supporting the community in their business operation is to have your own presence. So I think you're going to see that that's going to be a permanent part of every retail operation, I think, going forward. And then with restaurants, again, I think, this forced every restaurant to become a carryout restaurant. For many, it worked. For some, it didn't because of their various business models. But again, going forward, I think you're going to see these family-style meals that had been put together where you could go and pick it up and serve it to your family. I think you're going to see that continue to be part of the restaurant scene as well. And then hopefully there'll be such a positive experience with expanding outdoor dining opportunities that our communities will keep the looser standards and allow that to be a regular part of the dining experience as well going forward.
In terms of momentum, we've seen some excitement, or at least more people out on the streets, on the town, going around the shops and restaurants because they're reopened and they've been cooped up in their homes for all this time during the pandemic. They want to get back out. Have these businesses locally seen their business improve and have some momentum gained? And if so, what suggestions does your team at the Birmingham Bloomfield Chamber of Commerce have for them to maintain that momentum so they can really kickstart their business financially after the hit that they've taken?
Well, I think definitely foot traffic, especially in our downtown areas, has picked up. No question about it. You are seeing more people out and about walking around. A lot of offices still have their employees working remotely, so that's kind of hurting the lunch crowd for restaurants. Across the board, they're just not seeing the numbers that they used to. But again, I think it's because, another side of this is a lot of companies realize that their workforce can be very efficient and very effective working remotely. And so that's another whole thing that's going to be debated going forward as to how much physical space do you really need? And do you need to have everybody together in a confined space, or can you let people work independently and remotely? But we need to get more critical mass. We need more people to come into our communities and into our stores and into our restaurants. And the best way to do that is through education and information. We encourage all of our members to have right on their websites and use through their social media exactly what their safety policies and precautions are. What is the experience going to be when you come into my store, come into the restaurant? So there's no surprises. So somebody doesn't come in and go, whoa, I wasn't expecting this. And then again, a little kindness can go a long way. If you like what your store has done or your restaurant in terms of social distancing, reduced capacity, wearing the face masks, thank them. Say thank you for making me feel safe, and thank you for worrying about my safety, instead of having these altercations that we're all hearing about. So it's all about making people feel comfortable that you are providing a safe and secure environment for them to shop, eat, play.
Joe Bauman, the president of the Birmingham Bloomfield Chamber of Commerce, joining us this morning on the Oakland County Megacast. We talk about momentum. We talk about keeping that kickstart going strong. Previously, the Small Business Association of Michigan had some pretty bleak predictions based on their polling of businesses across the small businesses across the state in terms of what they believe they'll be able to do in terms of getting their some part of the lost sales from the pandemic back, or if they think they're going, and definitely in terms of if they think they're going to survive post-pandemic altogether. Reasons for optimism now, or are you still calling for caution, or a little bit of both? What's your forecast of the business community going forward?
Well, there's a reason why, a beautiful sunny day is called the Chamber of Commerce Day. We're always optimistic. We want to be. I think really a lot is going to depend on what happens come this fall. I think we are seeing some momentum. We are seeing people return. We are seeing people feeling more comfortable in being out as long as all these safety measures are being taken into effect. But I don't know if small businesses would be able to survive a second total shutdown like we saw in March and April and May, frankly. It was a huge financial hit for these businesses. And especially, restaurants and retailers, they work on a pretty thin margin to start with. And they just don't have the reserves to carry them through another 3-month shutdown. So, we're hopeful that that's not going to happen. We're hopeful that the measures that our state did take in trying to contain the virus are going to pay off in the long run, and we're going to avoid that second wave or that second spike. But we're just going to have to wait and see. There are a lot of unknowns continuing, and you just have to take it a week at a time.
Joe, anything else before we let you go for the day?
So I do want to mention that if you are a small business owner in Oakland County, the Oakland County Commission is scheduled to vote tomorrow on an additional $30 million Small Business Stabilization Fund grant program. The application may be available as early as Friday. So if you are a small business and if you didn't participate in either phase 1 or phase 2, you're going to have another opportunity to try to receive a stabilization grant and help you with your cash flow. So just keep an eye on the county website. And of course, we'll have all the information posted on our website and through our social media as soon as we get an opportunity to do so.
Well, Joe, thank you very much for being with us today, and thank you for partnering with us on Facebook as well.
Thanks for having us, and we're pleased to host anytime.
Anytime. Thank you very much. Joe Bauman, the president of the Birmingham Bloomfield Chamber of Commerce.